Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, sister. How are you?
Good. How are you? Walaikum salam.
Alhamdulillah. Sister, welcome to the Niqabi Diaries and thank you for agreeing to do this interview with us. Could you
Yes.
introduce yourself for us and tell us a little bit about what you do?
Yes, I can. So my name is Chelsey. I'm an American revert to Islam, alhamdulillah. I converted back, I think it was 2011, somewhere between like August, September or so. I was actually an atheist prior to that, so alhamdulillah. I pretty much started wearing hijab very soon after I converted. I think it was kind of on and off for like the first 6 months or so. And then I think I stopped wearing it altogether for a few months until I really realized, the meaning of it. And then alhamdulillah, I put it on right after my very first Ramadan, and it stayed on ever since then. And now alhamdulillah, I'm a mommy of 3 boys. 5 or 6, he just turned 6, alhamdulillah, 6, 3, and I have an 8-month-old or 9-month-old. Sometimes I think I've lost track. I own a business, so I work out of my home. Ali, please give that to me. Yeah, I know. So I own a small business where I sell tie-dye scarves and some clothing, modest clothing, some niqabs, and I'm actually just now pursuing a new business, which is Peace Love Naturals. So I'll actually be hand making herbal hair care and self-care products. My trade is actually cosmetology. I went to cosmetology school. I was a working cosmetologist up until I got married. And so now I'm just kind of a stay-at-home mommy that tries to make a little bit of money, and I love talking about Islam to other sisters on Instagram. I used to have a YouTube channel that I discontinued just because I was having personal conflicts with, me being on YouTube in general. But I do think I might actually plan on restarting my YouTube channel for my Peace Love Naturals business to help teach women about herbal healing and making herbal stuff at home, and talking about my products and things, inshallah.
MashaAllah, tabarakallah. Sounds amazing. This is something I'm really interested in, herbal and the natural products, mashallah. I'm sure a lot of sisters are
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I find that a lot of Muslim sisters really kind of draw towards that stuff. Not that non-Muslims don't, but I do find that most Muslim sisters that I associate with anyways are kind of drawn to that. I wonder if it has something to do with our faith.
Yeah, maybe, yeah, inshallah. SubhanAllah. So sister, what made you want to wear the niqab?
So I was actually one of those girls that never thought I would wear the niqab. I never really considered it. I always kind of thought it was a cultural thing, or like maybe just the women in Saudi do it, or I had known that it was a part of the religion. In all honesty, before I converted, I don't really think I knew much about hijab really, because some of the Muslim girls that I knew wore hijab, some didn't wear hijab. So, it all just kind of comes with time and learning and educating yourself properly within Islam. And I definitely felt a draw towards wearing the hijab. I think first off, because it was my way of being able to represent like my new belief. So kind of that idea of wearing your religion on your head, that's what I wanted to do. It wasn't even that like I felt like I had to wear it for my religion, but I just outwardly wanted to be a Muslim so bad because Allah had helped me to believe in him through Islam. And so I think it was just something that I just fell in love with because I was so proud that I was finally a Muslim. So I was already very, very attracted to the hijab, and alhamdulillah put it on. And I think that it was just in time of doing proper research. And I remember coming across a sister on YouTube one day. I can't remember if I was like researching niqab in general, but this was about the same time that I actually ended up leaving YouTube because I was kind of starting to feel like I was a little bit too out there. I was, you know, talking about personal things. I wasn't as private as I wanted to be. You know, I was very open about showing my children on my YouTube videos, you know, discussing my past, and not to say that I was doing anything that maybe some people, you know, would consider haram, but it started to make me feel uncomfortable. Like, you know, what am I doing on here? And I do think that a part of me kind of started to take a step back and think, do I need to be this like out there, this present, this have my face right there on social media for the world to see? And I think naturally it kind of led me to do a little bit more research in niqab, because I was like, I wonder if this is kind of a way for me to be on social media but not feel so out there on social media. Maybe if I just start covering my face on social media, you know. So I made a lot of dua about it, and my heart just kept telling me, Allah kind of, I think he led me to a place where finally I just didn't really feel comfortable having my face on social media anymore. I immediately took down all my YouTube videos. I immediately took down all of my photos and the photos of my family off of my social media profiles. And anytime I would go on to social media, I would wear the niqab. And so I think naturally that kind of just led me into educating myself, because I was like, you know, maybe, you know, when a lot of people talk about that hijab is a barrier and hijab is a way to protect us, I was like, maybe that's kind of, you know, of course, referring to niqab as well, because I'm feeling much more protected. I'm feeling much more safe. I'm not feeling so vulnerable. And so I think that just my starting to really love the niqab, and it's, you know, kind of transforming a bit of, I don't want to say like immodesty or whatever that was left inside of me. But I mean, when I had my YouTube channel, I was doing makeup tutorials and fashion stuff. And so I do think that coming, especially too from a very Western, non-Muslim upbringing, where I used to model and I did beauty pageants, and, you know, like, I do think that niqab made me feel anyways like it was like that last step in kind of shedding that bit of immodesty I had left in me. And it just made me feel comfortable. I started to feel much more secure, like in myself and in my skin. And it helped to kind of humble me in a strange way. And so in that, you know, of course, I wanted to start looking for Niqabi sisters that I could follow and watch Niqabi videos. And I think that's finally probably what ended up leading me to, and maybe you are familiar with her. She's I can't remember if she's Indonesian or Malaysian sister. Her name is Fin Jamal.
Oh no, I haven't heard of her.
Okay, she actually used to be a pop singer.
Oh, right.
And she ended up leaving the music industry and started wearing hijab and everything like that. And then eventually she talked about in one of her videos, I think it's Dops TV. She talked about how when she started wearing the niqab, that for a while she actually used to carry a niqab in her backpack with her, because she just had this love and this draw for niqab, and, you know, and she wanted to wear it, but she just wasn't sure if she was ready, or the people around her were ready to accept it from her. But she always wanted to. So she had it in her backpack. And when she kind of talked about that, I was like, man, that's kind of how I'm feeling. Like, I'm feeling this draw to want to wear it. I'm starting to have this love for it. I'm growing more knowledge in it. You know, I was able to really understand who used to wear it, why they used to wear it, the differences of opinion on, you know, whether it's fard or mustahab or, you know, all of that kind of stuff. And so, of course, I ended up buying some educational books. You know, one of the books that I always recommend to women who are looking into the niqab are the 4 essays on veiling. I thought that was a really great one. You know, there's a few other books that I have, like My Sincere Advice to the Muslim Woman. You know, so I started reading those kinds of books, and I was like, wow, you know, they really, you know, I personally you know, I'm kind of in that middle spot on whether it's fard or mustahab. You know, I just say, you know, Allahu alam, you know, I'm doing my best. And, you know, and so, but I think it allowed me to really draw towards niqab more, to really know that there are actually people out there who do kind of hold a stronger view on it, and to have all of this evidence presented towards me. You know, and for me, I'm definitely very like evidence based. I'm yeah, I think that was one thing that really drew me towards Islam, was I felt like it was so factual, and like just everything was there presented for you. No matter what question you had, there was always an answer for it. And so I was one of those kind of, maybe maybe to some people, the weird person who like loved the fiqh. I didn't really care about all the spiritual stuff, because after all, like I was atheist, so like spirituality to me wasn't as important as like the actual facts. And I was like, you know what, if a religion helps me to believe in Allah and believe in God, you know, then that's probably going to be the religion for me. And because after studying Islam, I was just like, oh my gosh, like this makes sense. And I feel like if there is a God, this is probably his religion. You know, and so because of that, like really studying the fiqh behind veiling, it just drew me closer and closer to wanting to wear the niqab, wanting to implement it. And wearing it on social media got a lot of attention, because of course my followers on my old profile, which was Chelsey Hijab Love, you know, it had close to, you know, 32,000 followers, I think, at the time that I left my YouTube channel. And my YouTube channel was about the same. And so of course now it's decreased. Now it's around like 24,000, you know, because a lot of those people who were following me for my makeup and my fashion, and, you know, to look at my face and, you know, whatever it may be. And a lot of people didn't agree with my choice to wear it. Addie, go outside, please. You know, a lot of people definitely did speak out about, you know, not being very happy that it was a choice that I made, that I was making Islam look extreme, and they were very.
So, sister, could you go into like how you actually came to Islam from an atheist background? Like, what actually got you into the religion in the first place?
Yes. So, growing up, I didn't grow up in a very I grew up in a very non-religious household. I mean, I'll admit my father, he's very science driven, and my mom is she's the sweetest woman ever, but she's just very spiritual, she likes to say. So you know, religion was a matter of Christmas and Easter. You know, I would attend church and stuff like that with like some of my girlfriends who their families were a little bit more practicing. But it, you know, religion was never really a big deal in my life up until I was a teenager. I started going to more youth groups and some church services that were kind of targeted towards like a teenage audience, I guess you could say. And I actually started attending like this hip hop church. They called it. The pastor, he had like a hip hop CD where he used to rap about Christ and all this kind of stuff. And so, you know, I enjoyed myself, but I remember sitting in a sermon one day, and you know, and we were singing and everything, and it was so much fun. But I kept thinking to myself, like, man, I kind of feel like a hypocrite. Like, I don't feel like I believe in any of this stuff. Like, you know, and I would go to like a Bible study every once in a while, and I read like an urban, they called it an urban translation of the Bible. Wow. And so, you know, and I just remember always like just all these red flags kept coming up whenever I would read things, and I never felt like I really got a whole lot of answers. And I remember asking like my cousin, who's very religious, like they're very active in their Christian church, and I was like, you know, how did you believe in God? And she's like, you know, you just kind of have to have faith. You know, I was like, but what if you just don't have faith? And she's like, I don't really know, you know, it's just something you have. And I'm just like, that's not good enough. And I, sure enough, just kind of started calling myself an atheist, because at that point I didn't believe in God. I didn't have a religion. I definitely do think I kind of went more on the scientific side. I was like, hey, I'm totally okay with the fact that we were like created from a tadpole, and like we grew into these, you know, intelligent creatures and we're just going to die and like become a part of the earth. Like, I'm totally okay with that, you know? And, but in high school, I wasn't the best of student. I ended up going to night school, and a girlfriend that I had made in night school class actually was a Muslim. And coincidentally enough, it was actually Ramadan. And so she had actually asked me, she's like, hey, you know, my, you know, whatever, my masjid, you know, of course I didn't know what that was at the time, so I hesitated in even saying that. I was just like, okay, whatever. She's like, hey, you know, we're having some picnic, and you know, I really want you to come. And I was just like, okay, you know, sure, why not? So I actually ended up, I think it was just a couple nights later, I ended up going to her masjid. And, you know, I remember her telling me, like, make sure you wear like long sleeves and pants and stuff like that. Like, don't come dressed how you dress, which I understand why now, but I didn't understand then. I was just kind of like, okay, I guess she wants me to be modest. I don't know, you know?
Yeah.
And I remember even being in, you know, like getting out of my car and walking up and feeling like all eyes were kind of on me a bit. You know, my hair was out, and, you know, I'm like this white girl walking up to this masjid looking very not Muslim. And, you know, and this older woman, mashallah, she looked a little upset, and she told my friend in Arabic, which I knew after asking my friend what she said, and she insisted that I covered myself because I was standing out too much. Like, it was like I might have been like a distraction or something. I'm not so sure. So, you know, but I honestly can't even say I like knew what Islam was, what being Muslim was. I can't say I even knew a Muslim or anything in high school that I can think of. You know, so for me, it was just kind of like, oh, this is this person's religion, whatever. I'm very tolerant and accepting, like, you know, do what you got to do. And I remember putting a scarf on my head. And so at this time I was probably about 17 or 18. And so she was, I guess, my first Muslim friend. And she didn't cover, you know, so, you know, of course that, you know, that confused me later on when I started studying Islam and all of that. And, you know, but that was probably like my first opening of Islam for me. And I ended up getting married when I was 19 years old, and he was in the armed services. And of course, at that time, it was a lot of soldiers were going to Afghanistan and Iraq and all of that kind of stuff. And I remember, you know, just hearing very negative things about Muslims and Islam in particular. And that's just not really the type of person I am to just, you know, ramble off how bad people are for no reason without education or anything like that. So I remember buying a Quran. And it's not a very good translation. It was very difficult to read, and I think even to this day I have, and I tried to give it away to somebody, and that person ended up like not living where I ended up mailing it to or something. So maybe Allah just doesn't mean for people to have that translation. I don't think it's very good, Allah. But I remember I couldn't even get through the first maybe, I don't know, 6 pages of Baqarah or so. And I was just like, I have no idea what this book is saying. Like, I am not getting this whatsoever. At the time, my Muslim girlfriend had actually gotten married, and she moved away, and I came to visit her. So I was flying over, and I had the Quran in my hand, and I'm on the boat. Oh my goodness. I'm on the plane, and I'm trying to read the Quran. Like, I'm really wanting to learn. And, you know, as an atheist, for me, it's just like, I'm just educating myself. Like, I kind of pride myself on just education in general, even though like I was never very school smart, never very book smart. So anyways, so I just wanted to know what Islam was about. But this guy next to me kept interrupting me. Like, he wanted to have this very long, in-depth conversation about I don't know what. And I remember being so frustrated, and I swear it was like the shaitan trying to like disrupt me. Like, who knows? I could have became Muslim earlier, but that's not what Allah entailed for me. So, but from that day, I never picked up that Quran again. I didn't study Islam again until I was 24 years old. So at that point, I was probably about 19. I didn't pick up a Quran again until I was 24. And the same girlfriend that I had in high school, she was visiting down in Florida, and we were hanging out. And unfortunately, I mean, you know, she wasn't like the most practicing Muslim. So she had, my girlfriend had come back to visit. And I remember, you know, we were hanging out and going out at nighttime and stuff like that. And she would sleep over at my house occasionally because, of course, you know, her auntie would never allow her to come home, you know, past like midnight. So, you know, so she would stay with me. And I remember just very clearly, I remember this one morning in particular. We woke up, we got some food, we were sitting on the couch, and she was like, you know, I just don't understand, like, how you don't believe in God, like how you don't believe that there's a God. Like, I just don't get it. And, you know, for me, of course, it was very easy, you know, because I just didn't believe. But that's when I kind of realized that even if you're not really like a non-practicing Muslim, you still, like, a lot of the Muslims that I know that are non-practicing still have very firm belief that Allah exists.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's very hard to take Allah out of the hearts of Muslims, even if you are a sinner, even if you don't pray, you know, even if you're not practicing. And that was something I saw very clearly from her. And you know, unfortunately, quite a few Muslims that I kind of had surrounded myself with at that point. And, you know, and so she, you know, she asked me something very basic, you know, which, you know, you don't really think of, but she was just kind of like, you know, if there was a religion, what, like, you know, what would it be like, you know, like how could you believe in God, you know? And I had never really thought about it before, I guess. And so I just kind of started rambling on and on about, like, okay, well, God would be like this, and the religion would be like this, and all that kind of stuff, you know, because I was very open with her about, you know, like, she's like, well, you know, what do you think about Christianity, and what do you think about this? And I, you know, I remember her telling her, you know, because I just kind of feel like all those stories of the prophets and stuff like that are just, you know, like fairy tales, you know, like, you know, and I do think it's very easy to see it that way when you don't have belief in a creator. So I was just kind of, like I said, I was just kind of rambling off, like, what the religion would be like, and, you know, how women would be in the religion, and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, I always kind of saw myself as somebody who was kind of in the middle of being like a traditionalist, but a feminist. And I didn't really know where I lied. I wanted to be that hardworking, like, money-making woman. At the same time, I wanted to be the stay-at-home mommy that did the homeschool. And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, so I just kind of went with my heart as I was, you know, talking about things. And at the end of it, she was just kind of like, you know, I just want to let you know that you kind of sound like a Muslim. And, you know, and of course, you know, me talking about that stuff, I can't honestly say if I ever really went too deep into religious conversation like that before with somebody. You know, so I don't really think I ever really even expressed those kind of thoughts. I will say that I do think at that point in time, I could say that maybe I was a bit more agnostic.
Mm-hmm.
You know, not that I was searching. I wasn't really searching for anything, but I did kind of, I left myself open, and I was just kind of like, look, if there's a God and he wants me to believe in him, it'll happen. You know, if there's a religion for me to follow, it'll happen. But right now, I don't really care. I don't really think that there's anything, but hey, who knows, you know? I remember always saying, like, oh, well, if there is a God, he'll judge me on the type of person I am, you know? And as soon as somebody says that, you already know that there's something inside of them that's even questioning whether there is or isn't themselves, you know? So if somebody's an atheist and they say that, then they might not be 100% an atheist, you know, to even say, well, if there is a God. You know, I think my dad says stuff like that sometimes. And, you know, so for me, I think just having that very short conversation. I mean, you know, maybe it was an hour or so of us sitting on the couch and just chit chatting. That, you know, at the time I wasn't working. I was in between jobs, and I wasn't going to school. I ended up signing up for some college courses later on. But so at the time I was like, you know, I don't really have anything to do. You know, I'm just kind of sitting around the house, just, you know, enjoying life. And and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna start, you know, researching Islam a little bit. You know, I had that Quran, the Quran at one point in time that I never finished. And you know, so I started researching Islam. I started watching lectures. I ended up finding, you know, channels like the Dean Show, and, you know, like a lot of like the, like the Revert type shows, you know, help people understand Islam better. And I remember, I don't think they do anymore, but on the website they had all of these video lectures from different sheikhs. And I remember being attracted to like Dr. Bilal Phillips in particular. And he just had a very kind of clear way of explaining things, in a very nice, understandable way. You know, he didn't fluff anything. He wasn't trying to make things sound special, you know, and even sometimes when you hear things, you kind of question, you know, so you do more research. And I remember, you know, of course, because I was researching Islam, and at that time, you know, the kind of I guess you say, like, whatever, the war on Islam, or like, you know, the people disliking Muslims, I think, you know, were pretty strong at that time, because our troops were actually being sent overseas more often. And, you know, so you would always find these videos on YouTube about the prophet and about the religion and about the companions. And you would just think to yourself, like, wow, this stuff is craziness. And of course, since I was researching it at that time, you know, I would come in contact with all these videos that would say such horrible things about Islam and about our prophet. And I was just thinking to myself, you know, because I was very non-biased at that point. For me, I was just educating myself. It was nothing more than that. It had nothing to do with the fact that I was planning on being a Muslim, that I wanted to be a Muslim. It was purely educational. So, you know, I would watch these videos. Ali, please, Baba, you're big. You know better. You know better. And so I would watch these videos and I'd be like, oh man, if this really is like what Islam is, I'm not so sure that this religion is for me, you know? And so I would get a little nervous sometimes when I would see these videos, because they seemed like they knew what they were talking about, you know? And unfortunately, I think that this is where a lot of non-Muslims probably get their information, you know? And so I remember being like, this can't be the case. Like, the Muslims I know, yeah, they're not perfect, but they're not stupid, you know? Like, they wouldn't follow a religion if it was like this. If every time I would watch a video that was like negative towards Islam, I didn't want to fall into the traps of like believing that stuff. So I would then go to some of the sheikhs, some of the imams that I was watching at the time, to see if maybe they had a video that actually discussed that particular topic. Like, for instance, the marriage between our prophet and Aisha radiallahu anha. You know, that was a big one, you know, that they would always get on to the prophet about. And, you know, so alhamdulillah, there's so many videos out there about that. You know, so I was able to kind of clear things up. And every time I saw a Muslim explain these so-called misconceptions that these non-Muslims construed into this like horrendous thing, I always felt like, wow, you can really see who's actually educated and is actually speaking from knowledge and from like a very wise place, versus somebody who's just kind of speaking out of ignorance and hate. And that's what I felt. And so every time I would do that, I'd watch a bad video and a good video, a bad video, a good video. And eventually it just kind of led me to the point where I was like, okay, it seems like a lot of the misconceptions are being kind of cleared up for me. And I started studying a little bit more about the prophet, because you know, a lot of the stuff, of course, with Islam was targeted towards, you know, our beloved prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And I remember just kind of educating myself a little bit on who he was, and what his character was like. And I grew to just kind of like love him as a man. And I remember, and I really don't think I realized this up until actually recently, when a non-Muslim sister had asked me some questions. In particular, she asked me my convert story and what made me believe that Islam was true. And I remember explaining to her my convert story. And I honestly think that it wasn't really until then that I realized that even 2,000 years later, like, it truly was the prophet. Of course it was Allah, but it truly was through the prophet that brought me to Islam. Because even though I didn't study him in depth, I researched his character enough and the situations that happened in his life that people, would speak negatively about him. And I remember just thinking, like, there's no way that this guy is all of these bad things that these people are saying. And it just seems like, there were like a few options, right? I remember watching this video, and I cannot remember who said this, but they were like, there's kind of like these three options. Like, either, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was telling the truth, right? He really was a prophet, or he was crazy, right? Or he was just a liar.
Yeah.
And I remember kind of weighing those things out, because, even just like a subject like psychology is very interesting to me. And I remember thinking about it that way, in a very kind of like, psychology manner. And I was like, well, it doesn't seem like he's a liar, because liars are usually found out, and most times liars aren't really like, good people, so for people to kind of praise the prophet like they did, but then him be a liar, like that's very far and in between, right? The chances of him being a liar, I feel, are very low, especially after the long period of time that, he had his prophethood and how people spoke very highly upon him. And then the crazy thing, crazy people are found out to be crazy, and I just remember kind of breaking this down and really seeing, even just like how Aisha radiallahu anha used to speak about him. And I think from there, I was just kind of like, well, I kind of feel like if there was a prophet, Muhammad definitely was one. And so if Muhammad is a prophet, then that must mean that maybe God does exist. And then if God does exist, then that must mean that like Islam is the true religion, and then I have just been blessed with it, like alhamdulillah. And I remember just kind of feeling like, man, if I've ever been close to what my cousin said, you just have to have faith. If I had ever in my life been close to that feeling, it was the feeling I had towards Islam and Allah in Islam. And I remember telling who is now actually my husband, because unfortunately I got a divorce, and about a year later, alhamdulillah, I got remarried, and that's my now husband. And we were just acquaintances at the time, and and he just thought I was like some silly white girl that's just like, I want to be a Muslim, and he was just like, just stop it, like, what are you doing? Like, your husband is like in the Marine Corps, like what, you're gonna be a Muslim, like, come on, and so he didn't take it very seriously. And but my Muslim girlfriend at the time, she was all for it. She's like, oh, this will be so awesome, like, you convert, and and of course, she joked around, and it'll be because of me, and and all that kind of stuff. And mashallah though, and because she definitely was, part of the vessel that Allah used to get to me, so may Allah bless her for that. And so but yeah, I remember just being like, I feel like my belief for God was as much as it could possibly. So I remember thinking to myself, like, if I'm going to believe in God any more than I, ever have in my life, like right now is the time. And I can't honestly say that like that just deep spiritual awakening was inside of me when I decided to make my shahada. I made my shahada because at that point I was convinced enough that the prophet was a prophet and that Allah was real. you know, and all of the spiritual stuff and everything, I think just it slowly started to come afterwards. You know, and that's sometimes what I have to tell girls when they're getting ready to convert or thinking about converting. I'm like, you know, if you have all of this spiritual, you know, yummy, crying, happy, heartfelt stuff before you convert, like, alhamdulillah. But if you don't have that, like, don't think that automatically Islam must not be for you, because not everybody gets that ooey gooey lovey feeling. Some people are different, you know what I mean? All of our hearts work different. The way that we think and feel about things are very different. But as long as you believe that Allah is true and that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the prophet, that's what you have to believe to convert. And if you have that conviction, then convert. You know, don't worry about all of the warm, heartfelt stuff. That'll come later on. Like, I'm a believer that if Allah sends you the message and you understand the message and you get the message, all of that, all of the beautiful stuff that you just long for and love and cry over, Allah is not going to bless you with that stuff until He knows that, like, you've made that commitment, you know, because what's going to be the difference if you just wake up tomorrow and you're just like, nah, I thought about it last night. But you know, it's like, you're not going to get all that warm, gooey stuff until you actually are a Muslim, because that's what ends up opening your heart to all of it. Is to have that your shahada, to have that conviction that this is it for me. And I remember even having a bit of anxiety, you know, probably the week after I converted, because I'm like, oh no, what if I don't, like, what if I'm not a good Muslim, or like, what if I don't do what I have to do, or like, no, this is a lifelong commitment. Like, I told myself, like, religion is not a game to me. You know, it was never something that I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to be a Muslim. And then like a week later, I'm like, oh no, I'm not a Muslim. You know, so it's something I took very, very seriously. So converting into the religion, it was definitely something that was challenging for my family to understand, especially having been in the position I was with, you know, a military husband, and having the lifestyle that I had and dressing the way that I did. And my family didn't understand it. They didn't like it. I'm sure a lot of them still don't really like it to this day, but alhamdulillah, I will say that I have an amazingly loving, caring, and accepting family.
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah. So and they're go on. And they're very, like, non-confrontational. So, you know, me converting, it was kind of like a, well, why'd you convert? And then that was it. And nobody wants to talk religion to me anymore. Nobody says anything to me. They're just kind of like, look, she's happy, she's healthy, she's not hurting anybody. Like, you know, hey, at least she believes in God, right? Like, if she believes in a different prophet, whatever, like, at least she believes in God. So alhamdulillah, you know, my family has kind of come to accept it. And even, you know, my dad sometimes, you know, for whatever reason, I'll get brought up in a conversation that one of, like, him and his guy friends have. And, you know, and my dad's kind of right-winged, you know, Republican type guy. And, you know, and, you know, so of course his friends are very similar. And, you know, I think one of his friends said something one time about, like, oh man, that must be hard to, like, have a Muslim for a daughter type thing. You're not saying it like in a mean way, but, you know, and my dad, he said, you know what, at the end of the day, she is my daughter and I love her. And that just, like, brought me to tears. You know, I mean, just to know that, you know, your parents can have such different views on things, especially something like your religion, but at the end of the day, like, they've learned to accept it. So alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. So what about with them wearing the niqab? Like, how do they take that? Has it just been like the same?
Yeah, so, you know, hijab was one thing. I remember my dad seeing me in hijab for the first time, and, you know, he said in probably not the very nicest way, like, you know, what the heck is that on your head? You know what I mean? And, you know, but at the end of the day, like, the hijab was one thing. They did notice that I started to take the photos off of social media, and I started to kind of cover my face every once in a while when I was on social media. And I remember my parents making a couple comments to me about like, oh, please tell me that like you're not gonna start wearing this on your face. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, even at that time, I remember thinking to myself like, no, I'm not. I'm genuinely just wearing it on social media. Like I really did not think that it was something that I was going to do permanently at all. I thought I was just doing it for social media. So that's what I said. I said, nope, I'm just doing it for social media. I just don't want to have my face out there anymore. I want to be more private in my life. And so they were uncomfortable with it because they were kind of like, but Chelsey, like you have a big following and social media is so public and you don't know who's looking at your profile. And what if you do get put on some like blacklist, you know what I mean? What if you do get looked at as like being extreme, you know what I mean? And so I think more than anything, that was kind of the fear from my parents. So yeah, I think that was more so their concern was one, my safety. They were already worried about my safety with me just openly being a Muslim, veiling my head. But now here I am covering my face. Now everybody's going to think I'm extreme, right? You know, so I think that was probably their biggest concern was just my safety and people thinking that I'm extreme, me being like blacklisted, you know, by the government or whatever it may be, you know, and and I just kind of tried to assure them that like, you know, at the end of the day, whether my face is veiled or my face isn't veiled, if somebody doesn't like Muslims, they're gonna come at you regardless. You know what I mean? Like there's plenty of people, plenty of women who have been attacked by people who their faces haven't been covered.
Exactly.
You know, so bad people are just bad people. And you know, and but you know, that's hard to, you know, explain to your non-Muslim family, you know. So anyways, but then of course I did start wearing it more often, and it kind of happened gradually. It went from social media to me, you know, because even my husband, you know, mashallah, my husband is very accepting of whatever I want to do. You know, he's I definitely think that Allah blessed me with him in the ways that our personalities kind of work with each other sometimes, because I'm definitely the type of person that I don't want to feel like I'm being forced to do anything. I don't want anybody to implement their opinions on me. I'm a very self-acting person. If I feel convicted enough to do something, I'm going to do it myself, regardless of what anybody else is going to say about it. It's good and bad and being very stubborn like that. But alhamdulillah, especially with my newfound religion, alhamdulillah, it's worked to my benefit, I think, to be very stubborn in that kind of stuff. You know, so my husband was kind of like, look, I have nothing against the niqab. I think it's a really amazing thing for you to do. He's like, but I mean, I will admit, yeah, sure. Like I would be concerned for you and the kids going out. He's like, you know, we just moved here, you know, and I don't know how people will react to Muslims. I'm still kind of trying to figure that out myself here. And, you know, and, but it kind of came to the point where I think he could see how much I wanted to wear it. And so I just kind of slowly started wearing it. Like if I went to the post office with the kids, or if I went to the grocery store or something like that, I would wear it. And I remember one day us going to like our local like halal butcher type grocery store, and me just kind of being like, hey, would you be okay? Because I don't think you know, I had really worn it around him much at this point. We traveled over to Jordan. That's where my husband's from, and I did get to actually wear it over there. I didn't wear it while I was traveling. You know, I wasn't wearing niqab full time anyways, or hardly even part time. So I wasn't gonna, you know, wear it while I was traveling, you know. So I haven't experienced traveling with it. se. You know, but I did get to wear the niqab while I was over in Jordan, because I was like, hey, yeah, like, you know, I'm in a Muslim country. If there's any place where I should feel comfortable veiling my face, I'm going to do it here. And my husband was totally fine with it. He's like, hey, yeah, you know, like, we're in Jordan. Like, why would you not want to wear it? You know, go ahead, have fun, you know? But man, I remember, and it wasn't even like a super, super hot time of the year, but it was, we tend to go over there either like right before Ramadan or like right after Ramadan. And it was so hot. And I remember feeling so suffocated, thinking to myself, like, I'm like, okay, if I can do it here and I'm comfortable and I like it, then I'm going to start doing it when I get home. You know, so this was kind of like my test run. It was like my trial. And I remember like going, I can't remember where we went, but we went somewhere and it was so hot outside and I was getting ahead. I was wearing a jilbab, of course, as well. So not only did I have pressure on my head, but I'm also kind of suffocating myself. And, you know, and I had babies to take care of, you know, my child was like 18 months at the time. And, you know, so I'm like backpacking him throughout the heat. And I just remember thinking to myself that day, like, man, I don't know if I can do this. And I remember even posting things on social media, like, today has made me like want to applaud all of the niqabis all over the world, because I was officially miserable today. And I was like, honestly, today made me feel like maybe I can't do this. And I was like, but I want to so bad. So I'm just going to take this as a bad day and just kind of put it in my pocket and carry on. And so I remember there was maybe a couple more times that I decided to wear it while I was in Jordan. And one of those times was when I was in Wadi Rum. And that was the day that I was like, man, all of those like kind of stereotypes or not like misconceptions, but the whole like, oh, women only veiled their faces in the desert to keep them away from sandstorms. Like, have you heard that?
Yes.
Like they did it for practical reasons, not because of, you know, righteous reasons. Well, that was the day that I experienced the practical reason, and I thanked God for it, because I went camel riding and we were in the desert. We were in Wadi Rum, and the wind was smacking the sand up into our faces. And I remember just being like, I'm good. Like, alhamdulillah, like, I'm covering my face. Like, I totally can understand the practicality of covering your face in the desert. So I was totally comfortable. There was a nice breeze. It was really nice. There was one time where it was pretty hot during the day, but for the most part, I was able to wear the niqab with ease. And, you know, and too, I do think that, and this might be going a little bit off topic, but I do think that something that struck in my mind when I was in Wadi Rum about niqab was that it was kind of saving me from myself, in that I think it's very easy sometimes for us women to get kind of drenched with beauty and beautifying ourselves and wanting to look nice and kind of walking around like, I want to say this in like the best way possible, but thinking like, oh, like, I wonder if they think I'm beautiful, or I wonder if they think I look nice, or, you know, do they think my face is pretty, or, you know, like that kind of stuff. And I remember thinking, you know, like, here I am sitting in the desert, you know, with like tons of like Arab guys like all around me, you know, and I'm thinking to myself, like, man, like, if I didn't have my face veil on, like, I wonder if like I'd be looked at more maybe than I am right now. You know, and I wasn't thinking that in like a cocky way, but just kind of, you know, just kind of being honest with myself and knowing that there's, you know, a certain attraction that men have towards women who look a certain way and whatever. And, you know, and I think at that point I did kind of like think to myself, like, man, like, covering my face is really kind of saving me from myself. You know, it really saved me from thinking about what I looked like, and if people were looking at me, and what are they looking at? My lips, my nose, my eyes, like my hair, you know, or feeling like I had to look a certain way, or, you know, and I do feel like, alhamdulillah, like, and this is like a true testament for me, especially like with hijab and niqab in particular, is coming from a background where I, you know, used to expose myself because I modeled, you know, I did beauty pageants. I mean, I was walking on stages with a bathing suit on, for goodness sakes, you know, and now here I am, like, you know, years later, alhamdulillah, and like, I've gotten to this point where like, I'm, I feel vulnerable with my face uncovered. Like, I feel like that is such a true testament to like the beauty of what like Allah can instill in you when you choose to be a bit more modest. You know, and it really does, like I have said to so many women before, you know, like, we are our own worst enemy, and we overthink our beauty and how we look and all this kind of stuff way too much. And I feel like the niqab and hijab has just kind of helped to remove that from me to an extent. Of course, I still want to look nice, but I'm not concerned with the what is it, the more material part of looking good, you know, the lipstick and, you know, and all that kind of stuff. You know, and it's been a really beautiful experience, and you know, and alhamdulillah, I've had a really great experience with niqab so far. I live in a very Western state, where people, I wouldn't say aren't used to seeing Muslims, but I definitely will say I'm probably one. Thank you, Baba. Thank you, Baba. I am one of probably a handful of face veiling Muslims that I know in my area. And the ones that I do know, I really only see at the masjid. I don't think in my city anyways, while I've been out and about, I don't think I've ever seen another woman covering her face. I've seen plenty of women who veil their heads and dress modestly, mashallah. You know, but I remember when I was kind of in that middle area of wanting to wear it full time and not being 100% sure about it. I remember this sister from California had messaged me, and she was a convert, and she's like, look, I was in the same place that you're at right now. And I remember just making dua to Allah and saying, you know, like, Ya Allah, make this journey easy for me. You know, we want to have the blessings of our trials, right? But for the most part, things that really require, you know, patience and worship of Allah, we want those things to be easy for us because we want to sincerely do them for Allah. And she's like, and you know what? Like, the next morning I woke up, I put the niqab on, and it, you know, and Allah has given me ease to wear it ever since then. She's like, I honestly haven't really had an issue with wearing it, alhamdulillah. And so that's what I did. I made dua to Allah. I said, niqab is in my heart for whatever reason. You've brought me to niqab. I want to wear it so badly. I find it beautiful. I find it sincere. I feel like it's transforming the woman who I strive to be, that I want to be. And, you know, please make this journey easy for me, like you've made hijab easy for me, because alhamdulillah, I do feel like Allah has made hijab easy for me for the most part. I mean, I've literally maybe had 2 negative experiences in the almost 9 years that I've been a Muslim, and I think maybe about 8 years that I've been wearing the hijab.
Alhamdulillah.
And you know, I had one, and of course this could have been a fault of my own. I have no idea if this guy was even talking about me, but I remember walking out of a store one day, and this young guy, I mean, he couldn't have been much older than maybe 20 or something, and he sounded like he was making like an Arabic accent, and kind of like saying something like you would see like in a comedy show or whatever, and I kind of assumed he could have been doing that. Maybe he wasn't doing that. But of course, me, you know, being covered and walking out of the store, I thought it was something that was targeted towards me. And so I kind of snapped back at him a little bit. And, you know, and I was just like, what are you looking at? You know? And of course, he came back and said something rude. And, you know, and honestly, I think that was probably like the worst thing that's happen, you know, and alhamdulillah, I mean, inshallah, nothing ever happens, but you know, and you know, and I've had people question me about my religion, ask me why I'm veiling, you know, ask me if my husband makes me veil, you know, that kind of stuff. But that's like minor, you know, I think that's just curiosity. Nobody's ever said anything, you know, towards that kind of stuff. And if anything, I've you know, kind of had a few guys, you know, say that they thought it was, you know, nice because like it, you know, it like leaves something to the imagination, which of course was probably very inappropriate at the time. But you know, I was working at the time, you know, so I was interacting with a lot of people. And so you just kind of, you know, customer service, you just kind of put on a smile and you're just kind of like, yeah, you know, like, what do you say, you know? So, you know, so alhamdulillah, you know, I probably had a lot more positive experiences than I have had negative. I think that my hijab and my niqab has actually led me to be able to make a lot of, you know, dawah that I probably wouldn't have made otherwise. You know, and I remember my mom saying something once she realized that I was wearing niqab for, you know, pretty much full time. I'm not, you know, 100%. And when my mom is here, you know, because I'm not on the 100% opinion that it is fard, you know, you know, that I'm not in sin if I'm not wearing it. You know, I do kind of give my mom a bit of grace and, you know, say, okay, I won't wear it around you because I know it makes you feel uncomfortable. You know, so I do, you know, avoid wearing the niqab when I'm with my immediate family. Of course, I still observe the hijab in front of my male cousins and things, but veiling my face, I just, you know, I don't feel like it's necessary to do that with my family. And, you know, I think it can be an extreme struggle with converts sometimes because we're on this fine line of like, we want to obey Allah and we want to do whatever we can to worship Allah in the best way that we can. But at the same time, we are Islam to our family.
Yeah, exactly.
And yeah, so like my mom sees Islam through me. She doesn't see it through the Quran. She doesn't see it through the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. She doesn't see it through even society, really. She sees it through me and my family. And I've already kind of given her the impression that Islam is a whole bunch of rules unintentionally because fiqh is just so fascinating to me. I absolutely love it. So of course that's what I love studying and that's what I like talking about. So I'm not intentionally being like, oh yeah, we can and can't do this, but it does kind of happen. And you know, and so of course, you know, I just want my family to see Islam in the purest way that they can. And you know, and so because of that, I do allow, you know, myself to be a little bit more lenient with my family, you know, when veiling my face or being respectful, you know, to them about that kind of stuff and how they may feel about it. And you know, and even today my mom, she'll make some jokes sometimes because of course there are still places where I'll, like, you know, my son, he does martial arts and I'm not just going to go in there one day without it on. You know, that's just that's strange, you know. So, you know, I do make my mom endure that. You know, and of course, you know, she'll crack a joke about it or something like that, and I try to take it with a grain of salt. And you know, and it's you know, it's the struggle of being a convert sometimes. But you know, for the most part, alhamdulillah, you know, my family sees, you know, how happy I am and how much I do think that they have seen that Islam has impacted my character and who I am as a person, and not in a bad way. You know, maybe some of my family feels like maybe I'm not as fun as I used to be or something. You know, but that's just because when you start to believe in Allah and, you know, you realize that you can have fun in ways that doesn't incur his wrath.
Basically, yeah.
You know, so you know, but yeah, alhamdulillah, I haven't really experienced too many negative things. You know, and like I said, I mean, if anything, I've encountered a lot of positive things, you know, just, you know, through me wearing the niqab kind of the way that I do. Not saying that like I'm, you know, I'm even perfect in my modesty, nobody is, but you know, I live in a very, you know, tropical climate, and you know, I wear, you know, my tie-dye scarves that I make from my business, and you know, and I'll wear a pink dress, or you know, I'll wear, you know, like an aqua niqab, and you know, so I don't mean to like try and stand out or anything. I know, you know, some people have different opinions on how, you know, we should dress as Muslims, but you know, I do my best with what I have, and still try to find enjoyment in what I wear, and taking into consideration my climate, my culture, and everything, and trying to find ways to please my creator and do something that I find beautiful, and worshiping him in this way, but also taking into consideration that I don't want to stand out actually in my climate. And I do think that there is something to be said, and many, you know, scholars have said this before, is that like, yeah, if you're living somewhere, you know, just making this an example, of course nobody's actually said these exact words, you know, but if you're living in a city where everybody's wearing yellow, right, you're not going to go outside wearing all red one day.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, just like I wouldn't be in Saudi, where probably the majority of women are wearing all black, walking out with a hot pink niqab on. You know, like that would be a bit strange, and probably maybe even a bit inappropriate at times. You know, but here I have noticed that if I do wear a little bit of color, it does make me a lot more approachable. And maybe that's not what some women are going for. But in my climate, where the last thing I want is for somebody to be scared of me, or look at me like I'm some terrorist extremist or something, like, you know, and I think an all black outfit is totally gorgeous. So of course I'm only making the example, but you know, you come out here and head to toe black, covering your face and your hands, and people are going to look at you funny, and they're going to be scared of you, and they might not talk to you, and they're going to have ideas of who you are as a person. And you know, and so for me, I have noticed that, you know, going outside with a pink niqab actually helps people to feel like maybe they can say hi to me.
Yeah, alhamdulillah.
You know, and you know, so if anything, you know, a lot of experiences that I have had is people actually feeling very comfortable to say hi. You know, you're Muslim, that's very interesting. You know, are you a convert, where are you from? You know, and I think that's something that not a lot of people get to experience, and it's something that Allah has been able to bless me to be able to experience those kind of things. And you know, I'm kind of thankful for being the talker that I am, because I'm, you know, I'm like, oh yay, you want to talk about Islam, let's go.
MashaAllah.
Yeah.
Alhamdulillah. So sister, finally, just to close the interview, like, what would you say that the niqab means to you, and what would you advise sisters who would like to wear the niqab but they don't feel ready to do so yet?
So the niqab for me definitely is, you know, like our hijab, like the way that we dress, like the way that we act, or anything that we do for the love of Allah, right? Or just for worship, to make ourselves feel like we're putting in more effort to become that person that we want to be, to progress in ourselves. I feel like the niqab is so much more than just a piece of fabric that's covering your face. You know, you hear very often of like, oh, well, the niqab is meant to conceal your beauty, and the niqab is meant so that other men aren't tempted by your beauty. And if you're beautiful, you should wear the niqab. But maybe if you're not beautiful, like maybe you don't have to. You know, like, have you heard? That's just craziness to me. Like, beauty is in the eye of the beholder.
Exactly.
You know, and for me to be veiling my face because of the temptation of a man, or for me to be veiling my face because I think I'm beautiful, I mean, I think that's undermining the power of what niqab could actually give to a woman. You know, I just think that the niqab, I feel like it can almost amplify a woman's personality, in knowing that she's not just a face, she's not just the lipstick she wears. You know, she does have a voice, and it's so much more than what her face can express to you. And I know that niqab has given me a sense of power in a way that I've never felt before. It's made me feel you know, I never felt like I had an issue being confident before, but I feel like it's given me a different sense of confidence. I'm not confident because I think I'm pretty. I'm not confident because of, you know, the makeup that I'm wearing or my hairstyle, but I'm confident because I'm confident in who I am as a person, as a mother, as a wife, as a friend, as a daughter, a sister, whatever it may be. And I just think that a lot of people, you know, they just so easily take the niqab or the hijab and just make it into a garment, something that you can dispose of or put on. It's your choice, and of course it's your choice, but it's a sign of I feel like it's a very personal sign of your willingness to do something for your creator and for yourself, that is unexplainable. And I think that a lot of women who wear the niqab can testify to the beauty of it. And I feel like it's really hard to understand the meaning behind the niqab to women who have never worn it. You know, because I think still, even in our Muslim community, niqab can be seen as extreme.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, and so I do think that's a struggle. But yeah, I mean, the niqab to me is definitely, it's a form of worship. It's a form of knowing that I'm trying to make myself the best person I can by removing the evil that's within me that has to do with maybe my own vanity even. You know, and protecting myself and feeling like, you know what, you know, yes, this isn't the most important form of worship to Allah, but at least he can see that, like, I'm sincerely doing this and I'm trying.
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah.
So
Really
yeah,
beautiful.
and with other sisters wanting to wear the niqab, you know, and of course I get this a lot, you know, living in the States, and there's quite a few girls who are like, I really want to wear it, but I don't know if my family will approve. I don't know if my job will approve. I'm scared about going outside with it on and things like that. And you know, and my first recommendation for them is like, look, I'm not saying you have to, you know, read a whole, you know, huge book about niqab, but educate yourself. If you don't know the purpose of niqab, if you don't know the beautiful people who used to practice niqab, if you don't, you know, if you're not sincerely doing it for the right reasons, or, you know, even just kind of understanding why you want to do it in the first place. You know, I think some people just kind of think it looks nice maybe. You know, then it's going to be very challenging for you to fall in love with it or be dedicated to it as much as you can. And so I always recommend that sisters educate themselves. I try and guide them towards either YouTube videos that I've seen that discuss niqab. You know, I always try to talk to them personally about it, just with my own personal experiences and my thoughts, because I do think, unfortunately, you know, even with some of, you know, our scholars, it can be very centralized around the beauty of a woman. And I just feel like, as a woman myself, there's just so much more to it, and it can almost be insulting sometimes when our veils always get brought back to our beauty. You know, so I always try to discuss that kind of stuff, and I think that women who want to wear it really should analyze that kind of stuff. Like, don't think of it as this is just something to hide your beauty, you know what I mean? Because there's a lot of women out there who maybe don't even think they're very beautiful, unfortunately, you know. And you know, and so definitely I always try to resource some books that I may have read, like the 4 Essays on Veiling. I think it's a very short, concise, easy read. I mean, you can read that thing in a week, you know. Yeah, really understanding the differences of opinion when it comes to the niqab, and kind of where you lie on that, depending on your madhab, or if you follow one or not. You know, and then first off, I tell them, buy one, hold on to it. If you get tempted to wear one out one day, you know what, wear it to the post office, wear it to the grocery store, wear it to the park with your kids, where maybe you only know there's like one family that always goes to that park. You know, start to make yourself feel comfortable with it. Remove your photos from social media. If you even have the inkling that you want to veil your face, you better take your pictures off of social media, because I'm speaking from experience. Your photos will end up everywhere. I have a beautified photo of myself on Facebook that ended up on some convert page. I've messaged them quite a few times to tell them to remove it. They haven't removed it. I have a beautified picture because I was on YouTube, and of course I posted all my pictures on Pinterest and every which where, and there's a brother who has an article on the verse about wife beating, you know, for that infamous verse apparently. And my photo is there because I actually did a YouTube video confronting that verse and explaining it from a sheikh that had explained it to me. And he used that photo, and I messaged him, and I was, you know, kindly like astaghfirullah, brother, like you're a brother using a beautified sister's photo on your Facebook, you know, please like rethink this, like please take it down. This sister, you know, I don't even think I said it was me, but I was just like, you know, this sister covers her face now, like please remove it. And from my knowledge, he hasn't removed it. So I'd highly suggest that women take their photos down, start taking the precaution of being more modest, you know, get rid of the jeans, start wearing the skirts, you know, just make those little steps, and eventually Allah will guide your heart to push yourself to finally wear it one day. And you know, and not to rush into it. If you wear it one day and you don't wear it the next day, that's okay. Like, you know, you're not marrying it, not yet anyways. You know, you want to be comfortable. You never want to feel like you're being pushed into something that you're not ready for. You know, so for me, it's a little bit different than hijab because I know 100% that hijab is hard. So for me, I'm kind of like, you're Muslim, put that scarf on, get it done, you know. But with the niqab, you know, take your time, you know, and if Allah means for your heart to be in it, as long as you're sincere, you're doing it for the right reasons, you're taking those steps to use it as a form of worship for Allah, then, you know, Allah will guide your heart to it and make it easy for you, inshallah. You know, but yeah, it's just kind of taking it step by step and really educating yourself in it is what's, I think, most important.
Alhamdulillah, Jazakallah khair, sis. That's really, mashallah, very thorough explanation and very clear. You're, mashallah, and a lot of insightful points that you've made as well, mashallah, tabarakallah.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry I'm so long-winded. I'm just like, I think I'm a chatter.
Everything you said, mashallah, has, you know, it's got a lot of value to it, alhamdulillah. And really, I could listen to you probably all day, actually, alhamdulillah.
Oh, no.
Thank you so much for doing this for us, taking your time out of your busy schedule, mashallah, with your lovely boys, keeping you entertained there as well. I don't know how you've managed to keep concentration, actually, because mashallah, even when you did get distracted, you always managed to come back to exactly your points. Alhamdulillah. That takes a lot of skill to do that. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah, Allah has instilled a bit of patience in me, and my natural character is to be like very chill and kind of calm and collective, which can drive people nuts sometimes because they're like, don't you get stressed out about anything? And I'm like, I do, but I'm such an internal feeler that it's like the craziness is going on inside while like the outside is like calmness.
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, that's great. It's good to be just chilled, isn't it? You know,
yeah,
going on. Alhamdulillah. Jazakallah khair, sister.
Thank you so much.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, sister.
Wa alaikum salam.